Fart in my pants tonight like a stinky little ghost in my underwear. Do 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 do. Anyways, so it's that time again. I'm gonna make another Zelda timeline theory. Now I think I may have figured out how it works. I mean, for me at least, grasping it, because there was always a few issues that I just didn't make sense to me. And yes, it is at the split. Because if you look at Ocarina of Time, there's no way the adult timeline could survive. None. It simply couldn't survive. Because the minute Zelda sent Link back in time, he changed the future. Now, I don't know if you watch like The Flash or anything like that, but you do that kind of stuff, you're screwing with a lot of stuff here. So there's no way, because by her sending him back, he rewrote history on some level. Therefore, the adult timeline can't exist. Now, the problem with that is, I think, well, I don't think, I know for a fact, what they did in the chart is they put Majora's Mask in the wrong spot. Majora's Mask should be up where it says the hero is successful. And that should be moved down one. Actually, technically, the hero defeated should be on that same line as the hero is successful, and then those two should branch off where the hero is defeated. So in other words, there was the child era and the adult era when she sent him back. So she sent him back, there was no hero, thus the adult timeline. She sent him back as a child, the child timeline survived, except he went right in from Ocarina of Time into Majora's Mask. Now, one of the problems with the hero defeated is you never saw it. People look at that and say, "Oh, that happened in Ocarina of Time." Well, no. If you look at the way the icons are set up on the chart, Majora's Mask should go directly underneath Ocarina of Time, which ironically is right where the hero is defeated. Now, we did not see the hero get defeated in Ocarina of Time. When did we see the hero get defeated? Majora's Mask. Because they actually did an animation where if you let the moon fall on you, you basically die. And what's interesting about that is at the end of it, because the moon crashes into the town, and this like massive, almost atomic blast, and blasts Link, and he's like, and he basically dies. And what's the next thing you see? You see Majora's Mask, which insinuates that Majora brought him back on some level. And who's the next person that you see after that? The Happy Mask Salesman. With, he says, you know, a terrible fate has fallen upon you, or whatever he says. So we actually see the hero get defeated. Now, for the adult timeline to survive, Link had to go back in time as a child and die, thus be defeated. So by doing that, by the moon crashing on his head, those two timelines can exist simultaneously. Because it doesn't matter. Okay, Zelda sent the adult Link back in time as a child, the child dies. Thus, there's no hero. So you have the defeated timeline. He did everything in the future, because he could teleport back and forth. He did everything in the future. So for the next 7 years, all that stuff played out. So Ganon gets defeated. It says Ganon's sealed. Hero of the Winds of the New World, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff then takes place. Now, how does the child era come into play? Because the paradox happened when Majora brought him back after the moon crashed, thus creating the timeline of the child. So the two bookends, the defeated hero and the hero wasn't there, are all the same event. When Majora brought him back from being dead, That's what created the child timeline. Because, and even if people want to scoff at that, it still is technically true. Because he does go to Majora's Mask and then comes back. But again, the only time we ever saw Link ever get defeated, like, you know he's defeated, was when the moon crashed on his head. So, I think Majora's Mask should go directly under the icon of Ocarina, which is right where it says a hero is successful. And again, if you look at it from that point, although I would move the... Well, actually, technically, no. I would actually move the adult timeline up to where the hero is defeated, up there, and then the hero is defeated in the child era should be connected. Which is, it's basically the same thing, but what they tried to do is when they made this chart, they tried to make it all uniform. And by doing so, it kind of fucked everything up. Because it insinuates that the end of Ocarina of Time. But what happened directly at the end of Ocarina of Time? Majora's Mask. It happened within 3 months. So, Majora's Mask easily could fit into the hero defeated, so on and so forth. It's not a stretch. But anyways, the second one that I want to talk about is I like the theory that's going around that Majora is actually Zelda. Now, this is all speculation, but where was Ganon? Where was Link? Where was Zelda? Where was the Triforce or the variant of the Triforce in Termina? Now, we know in Lorule they had a Triforce, which is kind of cool because it was upside down. You had Zelda, which her name was Hylia, whatever the fuck her name is. And she has dark hair instead of blonde hair. Link wasn't a hero. He didn't have the courage, so he's running around in a little bunny outfit acting like a jackass, selling you weapons and stuff. And he ironically has Majora's Mask. So we know that there are multiple Triforces, at least 2. There's at least 2 different Triforces. So where was Termina's Triforce? Now, what if, and this is just made up, okay? I've got like 0 proof or anything like this, but okay, what if Ganon, whatever he was in that area, what if he got a hold of the Triforce, made the wish that, you know, and what if the wish had something to do with, you know, something, and it was related to the masks and all that shit. Now, think about what would happen if, like, he wanted to conquer the world, you know. What if the wish had something to do with, like, a role reversal? Now, okay, maybe. Like, for example, what if the mask salesman was Link, like a decrepit, crazy version of Link? And what if because the whole thing about the mask is you're hiding who you really are. That's the whole point of a mask, is you hide who you are, you're trying to pretend to be somebody else. So what if that was Ganon's wish? Now think about what that would mean. He could be Fierce Deity, Link could be the mask salesman, and Zelda would be Majora, or some variant thereof. And they're basically wearing the mask. Like, he wants to be the conqueror, so he's the Fierce Deity. Link is the hero. Now he's this crazy, weird guy. Now, it does say that the mask salesman did kind of go around and collect, and he was exploring and collecting the masks and all that stuff. So maybe there's a hint of Link in there too. Or maybe it was just Fierce Deity as Link and Ganon was the mask salesman. Because the mask salesman has weird powers. Very similar to, and dun dun dun, spoiler alert, Breath of the Wild, the old man. The old man has certain abilities, if you will, and you find out why later. What if he's Ganon? What if the mask salesman is Ganon, and he's kind of like this lost spirit now? Because if you look at what because he can like teleport, the mask salesman, and you see him, like, at the end he's walking away and then just disappears, and he's creepy as fuck, and he has these mood swings, and you see the children up in the moon that are wearing the masks of the four bosses. So he's definitely connected to the moon, and there's definitely a connection there. And he's a weird cat, basically. So imagine if he did get a hold of the Triforce, made a wish, but he wasn't too specific in his wish, and it basically turned him into a nut job. Link turned into this huge, like, fierce deity, godlike creature. Zelda turned into this evil. Because what's interesting about it is when you look at, like, the Stone Tower, the Stone Tower is basically a blasphemy of the goddess. The whole thing is inverted. It's a weird place. Like, it's just a creepy place in general. And it's like this blasphemous, like as blasphemous as you can get toward a goddess. So either the people turned on her, or maybe Ganon got his wish, and the people are like, you know, screw this cycle of bullshit. These people are wicked, fuck them. Which I think would be an interesting twist if Ganon kind of became the hero, Zelda became the bad guy, because one of the arguments is when you hit Majora in the game, when you're beating it up, it makes this woman's scream sound, and people suggest maybe that's Zelda, because she's nowhere to be found. The closest thing was the little monkey people, but that's not the same. Everybody else from Ocarina of Time had a counterpart in Termina, except for Link, which, well, he did have Fierce Deity. But Fierce Deity was a lot different than typical Link. Which makes me think that maybe Ganon got a hold of the Triforce, or maybe Link got a hold of the Triforce, made a wish, and was kind of, you know, naive, and turned himself into something, turned Ganon into an idiot, like a crazy mask salesman dude, basically killed him. He's this disembodied spirit now. Because he does have this weird, like I said, the mask salesman has this weird vibe about him. He has these mood swings and shit, and he can teleport. So there's definitely something weird about the dude. And then Zelda becomes the corrupt version of what the people think of her, because maybe the Triforce changed their heart, and they're now bitter and angry, and they blasphemed, and they basically disparaged the statues and all that stuff. And it turned into this, you know, wicked thing. Now all of a sudden Zelda is embodying that in the form of Majora. So I think there's definitely a couple things that could very well go there. Because again, there was no Triforce, and we know there's multiple Triforce. There's at least two. There's the low rule version, which they destroyed, which I thought was a cool idea. I thought that was a very cool idea. Now, technically, maybe, like, what if the low rule version fits inside the regular version? Because you got a picture, you got the three triangles, and there's the one inside that's inverted. Well, theirs was inverted, so what if theirs fit into the other Triforce, and then you got this little tiny triangle? Who knows? I don't know. I just thought of that, but anyways, that's what I'm kind of leaning toward. I mean, there's just absolutely no proof either way, but I like the idea because Majora's Mask is very creepy. It is. It's very creepy. Now, what made it creepy? I think maybe Ganon, or even Link, or even Zelda for that matter, got the Triforce and was just naive to what they wished for, and it kind of completely back. Like, if Ganon got a hold of the Triforce and wished for, like, world domination, and that these two would be completely discredited, what better way to discredit them by turning Zelda, trapping her into a mask of mischief and woe, turning Link into basically a redheaded stepchild who's got mood swings. He's not. Now, Link has had different color hair before. He's usually kind of brownish blonde, but I don't know. But Ganon's the one that had red, so I'm leaning more toward him. You know, whatever. But the whole theme with the masks, where, like I said, it's hiding who they truly are. So what if there was a role reversal in the wish that was made with the Triforce? I mean, think about what that would entail. Which I think is actually kind of a cool concept to think about. But anyways, back to the original point of this. For the adult timeline to survive, young Link, when he goes back in time, he has to die. The moon has to fall on him, thus making the defeated hero. Because if that's the case, those two timelines survive with no problems. It's when Majora, aka potentially Zelda, brought him back through, again, artificial means. It created the paradox of he's dead, now he's alive. Again, if you watch The Flash, you'll know what I'm talking about. Which then created the hero defeated, and then the hero is successful. Because let's be honest, the hero wasn't not technically successful. Now, yeah, okay, he was successful, but then he disappeared, which then created... I mean, I can get that to a degree, but Majora's Mask really should go up underneath directly. Because again, if you look at Minish Cap and Four Sword, they go right underneath each other. Now, in between Four Sword was the Highland Unification War, and then you have Ocarina of Time. So there was something that went in between, and now we haven't seen a game of that, so it's just held by a placeholder. So, but we do see that there's different ones that should go right underneath each other, and Majora's Mask definitely goes directly underneath it. It should definitely go underneath that one. And again, the only time we actually saw a animated variant of the hero being defeated is when the moon falls on him. Because you don't see that in Ocarina of Time. Everybody will say, oh, he was defeated sometime. Or like when you see Ganon show up at the end of Ocarina and he knocks the Master Sword out, and they're like, oh, that's when that happened. No. You go and get the sword. You didn't see a moment where he died. Unless you want to talk about the timer running out, maybe. But again, they actually animated the moon falling on Link. And it happens at almost the exact moment. It takes place within what I'm saying. So what I'm saying, it does fit. It doesn't really change the layout of this too much, except it makes it make more sense. Because, like I said, the hero defeated should be at the very top of Majora's Mask. Because that is the next event. We're talking, like, I think it was 3 months. Now, I don't know. Because, again, she sends him back. The adult timeline survives. Because he did do all the stuff. He beat all the enemies, got all the temples. He beat Ganondorf, blah, blah, blah. Survived. Yay, they got the party at the end, everything, blah, blah, blah. Well, she sends him back, so he's not there, so that he's there. But the only way to survive and keep the adult timeline is if the child died, because he would rewrite the history by going back and knowing, gee, don't do this, you know. Don't pull the Master Sword out because Ganon is going to, you know, be a dick. So all that stuff had to have taken place to continue. So technically, when you think about it, when she sends him back, there's two Links. There's the adult Link who's now back 7 years as a child, and then there's the child who pulled the sword who's still in stasis. So no, that kind of created a small paradox too, which is how the two timelines can coexist. And then it was solidified by him dying when the moon crashes on him. And then when Majora brought him back, it had to be Majora because you see the mask, everything goes black, and you see the mask, and then you see the mask salesman laughing, saying, "Oh, a terrible fate has befallen you." Okay. So there's definitely some weird stuff going on there. I think there was 2 moments of paradox potential, because he had to be in the future to send back, and that created a paradox. But again, to solidify that paradox, he had to die with the moon crashing on him. And then, like I said, when Majora brought him back, that's what created the actual child timeline. And okay, even if you want to scoff at that, it's still technically true. But again, the only time we see the hero defeated is when the moon falls. So, and it does fit within the chart. It fits perfectly in the chart. But people have to understand that Majora's Mask does come directly, I mean, we're talking directly after Ocarina of Time. So the hero defeated could very well easily be the moon falling on his head. Which then would... Because what happens is, when Majora brings him back, he beats Majora's Mask, and then comes back into the Lost Woods, thus the child timeline continues. So in other words... Well, actually, basically, what would have happened is Zelda sent him back. There's no hero. Adult timeline stays where it is. Child timeline, child comes back. The child era would survive. He would have done what he did there. He would have gone to Majora's Mask. He would have come back, and then goes into Twilight, and then Four Sword Adventure. Blah blah blah. But again, we never see the hero actually get defeated. The hero gets defeated in Majora's Mask when the moon falls. So that created the paradox of those two. I mean, believe me, it fits. I don't know if I'm explaining it properly, but it does fit, because I was having the hardest time understanding how in the blue hell the adult timeline could survive if young Link went back and changed time. Because he would have rewritten the history. Just by him telling Zelda, even the young Zelda, that, okay, I've seen the future, blah, blah, blah. Knowing the future is, you go back in time, you're going to change the future by knowing what's going to take place. Even if they are kids, even if the king doesn't, like, oh, Zelda, you're just being silly. Even still, the king would be at least made aware that Ganondorf isn't who he says he is. He'd at least have that in his mind, where before he didn't. So that right there would change the history. So the adult timeline cannot survive. Again, the only way it could be survived is if it was solidified by the child dying. And then you got the whole 5 stages of grief thing, which I think I definitely adhere to that, because that is very cool. Because like, you got the clock town, and they're just completely in denial. You got this huge moon, we're gonna crash down on them. Got this evil face, and they're like, we're gonna have the celebration. They're building the little platforms and stuff for the celebration. People are fleeing, and like, oh my God, we're all gonna die, Armageddon, holy shit, And then each one of the temples is a different stage of grief, because the moon does fall on him, and he dies. So I definitely think that's the way it goes. And it would make absolute perfect sense. Because like I said, I was having a hard time trying to figure some of this stuff out, because it's not how it works. Even her sending him back really didn't technically create a paradox. Now what created the paradox is that he came back before he pulled the sword. Which, well, if that's the case, then there's 2 links. Or, no, actually there wouldn't be 2 links. It would be his physical body with his memory of the future, which then itself would change the future. So, whatever, I don't know. Because he had to have pulled the sword. And when he did, everything that happened. But she sent him back through she basically sent him back through an alternative method. Because before he was just bopping back and forth by putting the sword in and out of the holster of the Temple of Time. Which, I don't know scientifically how any of that would actually work. I mean, I could deal with the fact, okay, he pulled the sword as a child, he was put in stasis for 7 years, and now he's the adult, but that he could then put the sword back and then go back in time. It's almost like his consciousness went to his physical body. Like his consciousness went back and forth in a way. That I could deal with. Almost like what was it? Like they did with Wolverine in the was it Apocalypse? Or whatever movie that was, where it's like his older self's memory, his consciousness went into the younger body, and then he basically has the memories of what was going on. So that, I think, is what happened. But again, even if she sent him back as a child and he has the memories of all of that, and she sent him back, quote unquote, before, and this is what people want to say, before he pulled the sword, then that's not necessarily that in and of itself would change history. The adult timeline still wouldn't exist because he wouldn't have pulled the sword. So again, it just, I don't know. Because either way, even if she sent him back, those 7 years would still continue, and Ganon would still be doing what he's doing. Now, the problem is, if she did send him back, and she had to, before he pulled the sword, that's how Twilight Princess happens. Because they realize Ganondorf's an asshole, and now they want to imprison him, which they technically can't. So they have to send him to the Twilight Realm through the mirror and basically lock him away like he's in Australia or some shit. I mean, seriously, it's like this alternate dimension. It's like the version of Australia, but, you know, whatever. So all that would take place. But again, there is absolutely no place where the hero, or the child era and the hero defeated could ever take place. It's not in Ocarina of Time, and it's not even in Majora's Mask Collective. Like, if you just play through, the moon has to fall on you for that to happen. So I think there's definitely enough evidence there to prove what I just said. Now, I don't know if I'm saying it properly, like you can grasp it, but it's, believe me, it works. It actually does work. Because, well, again, if she sent him back, then the adult timeline doesn't exist. It simply doesn't. Because he never pulled the sword. Yeah, he might still be the young Link. He just visited Zelda, went to the Temple of Time, stood in front of the sword, and all of a sudden, boom, gets his memories from all the stuff that he supposedly did in the future. And knows that if he pulls the sword, Ganon's going to take over, so on and so forth. That moment right there erases the adult timeline. It's very similar to Age of Apocalypse from the X-Men comics, where Bishop was the only one who had memory of the original timeline. Which, I freaking love that story. I absolutely love that story. In fact, I might go back and read that again. I love that. I love the Age of Apocalypse. That is this is one of the greatest things they've ever done. Marvel. But that's neither here nor there. But it would be a similar thing. And there's no way that the adult timeline could exist unless she sends a child back and the child dies. Because that is the only way that because the hero is defeated. He is defeated, thus he dies. Unless there was some sort of, well, I don't know how. I mean, the only other time we see the hero quote-unquote defeated is at the beginning of Breath of the Wild. Which I don't know. I mean, now they said Breath of the Wild comes like way at the end, which I guess Spirit Tracks and Adventure of Link would be the latest in there in the timeline, somewhere, you know, on either end of the spectrum. And I think Breath of the Wild comes like way down past that. So again, that's the only time we've ever seen the hero defeated was in Breath of the Wild. But Breath of the Wild comes after all of that stuff. Now, I'm not going to speculate on what side of the timeline it's in, because there's hints of like every aspect of it. So people want to talk about a convergence, which I think would be kind of cool, but I mean, it's definitely leaning more toward hero defeated and child timeline. It definitely leans more toward that. Now, yeah, but what about the rock salt, and what about the, you know, mention of the flood and blah blah blah, you know, whatever. But again, if it's a convergence, well, we're not going to get into that. That's a story for another day. But yeah, anyway, to quickly recap again, because I want to continue to talk about it, but you know, hey, whatever. The only way for the adult timeline to survive is if the child died. He went back in time, told Zelda. Zelda's the only one with the information. She doesn't technically know if it's true. Now, getting her father to trust her, to believe, oh, this guy, he's a piece of trash. I know because my friend went into the future and came back. This boy that I just met. You know, he told me so. And I had a dream about him. Yeah, like, the king's gonna be like, oh, sure, okay, right. So, but even the fact that he has a inkling of a doubt about Ganondorf, that is going to change the future even slightly. So the adult timeline couldn't exist. So there's still that in there, but you could probably get around that. So essentially what happens is he defeats Ganondorf, and then Ganon. And she's like, well, I want you to have your childhood back, so I'm sending you back. And instead of putting the sword back, he just simply disappears. Well, no, actually, I don't know. Does he disappear? What if she sent his consciousness back? I don't know, that would be actually kind of weird. If she sent his consciousness back and he was just like an empty shell. I mean, imagine that. Imagine he's like the adult Link, but there's no there. His consciousness is now back with the child timeline. And the child consciousness has just been completely erased. But yet it still sort of coexists because he's still in stasis on some level. That's where the paradox came in. So he's still in stasis. He still did everything. The adult timeline still sort of survives, but she sent him back to change history. But again, if she sent him back, and this is where I come back to every single time. If she sent him back, then the adult timeline doesn't exist. It can't exist. Oh, but that's the paradox. No, that's not the paradox. No, the paradox is that he knows the information, he knows what happened, but if he never pulls the sword, then none of that takes place. He might be the only one who remembers it. Doesn't matter. Now, again, the only way to solidify that, like I said, is if the child died. Because it would essentially create a loop. Like, he went into the future, he did all that stuff, came back before that, and then died, which basically means nothing. See, I don't know, that... Because there's the pulling of the sword and not pulling... See, now I'm back to where I don't understand it again. So, I should have just ended the clip like 3 minutes ago. Because, again, I'm working this out in my head, so... forgive me. I don't do scripted stuff and like all these people. Well, you know, and then no, I'm not that. No, that's not what this is. Okay, I would never do that. This is real shit here. Okay. So, all right, hold on. Let me run through the story. He's a kid. He pulls the sword. He goes into stasis for 7 years. He wakes up at like 17, 18, 19, whatever. 17, 18. 17, I think. Whatever, who gives a shit? He then goes and does some magical, wonderful stuff. Takes out all the bad guys. Defeats Ganondorf. Ganon, blah, blah, blah. Zelda then sends him back before... Well, does it have to be before? I mean, yeah, you see him... See, that's the problem. They don't really... Because I can picture the scene play out. And a lot of people say, well, she sent him back before he pulled the sword. But did she really? What if she sent him back before the last time he pulled the sword? Well, see, now that wouldn't work either. Because he would have gone into the future, defeated Ganon, and then came back, so Ganon wouldn't have been defeated. And it clearly says Ganon is sealed. Ganondorf is sealed. That is, Ganondorf is revived. Hyrule is sealed and flooded. Well, the only time Ganon has ever been revived is in the original the original Zelda and Adventure of Link. You need the blood of Link. You need the blood of the hero to bring him back. So I don't know, what if he was just a big empty shell because his consciousness was teleported back to his child timeline, and they ended, killing him because he's basically just he's basically in a coma. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of weird. I don't want to speculate on that because that gets into some weird shit. But it does say he was revived, and we know that Ganon gets revived through the blood, or I guess there's alternate means to that, but we know blood is one issue. Literally an issue of blood, but whatever. See, now I don't want to get in. Now I'm getting out. Now I'm completely going off rails here. Again, this is confusing as fuck. I don't know why Nintendo had to do this. I have no idea. None. Zero. I'm still holding true to the hero is defeated when the moon falls on him, because that is the only time you see, and it's the only time that they've ever, with the exception of Breath of the Wild, which does not take place there, the only time that you ever see that the hero has ever been defeated is when the moon falls on him. You don't see it in Ocarina of Time. You don't see that. There's no alternate variant. And the hero is defeated clearly takes place after Ocarina of Time anyway. Now where it's confusing is that it continues on and says the hero is successful, which insinuates that it happened during. But see, that's the problem. That is the freaking problem. Majora's Mask should go directly under Ocarina of Time. And the end of the icon of Majora's Mask, the bottom of it, should be where the child timeline and the adult timeline, that line right there, it should be. So in other words, it should, the icon of Majora's Mask should fit where it says the hero is successful. It should fit right in that little box, that little area. Which means the hero is defeated happens right at the beginning of Majora's Mask, aka the moon falling on his head. And then the hero is successful would be the end of Majora's Mask, where he comes back. Now, keep in mind, he's died and then revived, which created sort of a paradox within a paradox, because he's not supposed to be there, because he's supposed to be in the future, but he came back from the future to die and then get revived or brought back. So that itself created the paradox. So by the moon falling on him in Majora, and I say Majora because again you see the mask, so Majora had to have brought him back. Again, if it's Zelda. Now, another thing I forgot to mention, Zelda would know that if there was enough calamity in the world, a hero would appear. So what if Ganon got the Triforce, trapped her inside the mask, and basically screwed everything up? She would know that if there was enough woe in the world, that a hero would appear. So what if Zelda was the one consciously doing all the horrible stuff? Like, she's going to bring the moon crashing down, hoping a hero will appear. And Fierce Deity is dead because he's in a mask. His spirit is trapped in a mask, so he's dead. Kind of like what they did in Lorule. They destroyed the Triforce. Their Link is a chump, so they had to go to an alternate dimension to get another Link to come and save them. That could actually work. That could be a really cool idea right there. Where, yeah, Zelda is actually the bad guy. Now, I mean, think about that, because that would make sense. Like I said, Ganon gets the Triforce, or whatever variant of Ganon they had in Termina. Ganondorf, I should say, or Ganondorf. Yeah, it would be Ganondorf, whatever. Ganondorf is the human form, and Ganon is like the spiritual pig fucker version, whatever. So either Ganon or Ganondorf, whoever, whatever, got a hold of the Triforce, made a wish that was completely like, okay. He wished that, and I think it would have to do something to do with the mask. Like, again, hiding behind a mask. Like, there would be a role reversal. So Zelda, who's usually the goddess, who's good, who protects the land, she's now trying to destroy the land to bring the hero to save them. And to save her. Which, you kind of see that in even Twilight a little bit. That kind of concept. Although she was more happy to endure being in the Twilight and just being trapped there, and she didn't really want Link involved, where this Zelda seemed to be like, yeah, you know, fuck it, I don't want to be trapped in this mask anymore. So, if there was a role reversal where she's doing bad stuff, I don't know, because I think it had to do with the way the people perceived it, because again, the fierce deity concept, where it's like, it's Link, but he's in this like really badass form, and then the people who turned on the goddess started doing blasphemy and mockery, and then you see Majora, and it's this weird little thing running around with these spindly little legs and stuff, and she's just creepy as shit. Okay. Almost like the people's worst nightmare, the world's worst nightmare manifest into Majora's Mask, which basically is Zelda. So again, if you had a Triforce wish that was, again, mask related, dude, I think that could definitely be an interesting way to look at that. Because again, where is the Triforce? I don't know. Where's Ganon? I don't know. Where is Zelda? I don't know. Who is Majora? I don't know. Who is the masked salesman? I don't know. How did Fierce Deity become Fierce Deity and not just be, a regular version of Link? I don't know. Where, again, if Ganon got a hold of the Triforce, he would turn the normal child hero into this, like, in other words, I think it was based upon the people's perception or the people's heart, because the people of Termina did turn, or at least some of them, or at least a good majority of them, especially in the whole that whole valley over there, where the stone tower is and all that whole area. They definitely turned on, the whole hierarchy of, the king and queen and Zelda and the whole nine and the goddess. They turned on that shit because the whole stone tower being upside down and it's just, I don't know. It definitely some cool potential lore there that is worth discussing. So again, I like that idea. I do. I like that idea. That Zelda is Majora. Ganon is the masked salesman. Now, I think the masked salesman might be like a disembodied spirit, a ghost of some kind. Very similar to the old man in Breath of the Wild. Because he can bop around and all of a sudden it's like, oh, he's up on the tower too. We didn't see him show up. All of a sudden you turn around, there he is. You do find out later why, but he has similar abilities. Now, what if... Now, because another thing that could be potential is that what if Ganon, aka the mask salesman, aka / partial Majora's Mask, what if Ganon became split? Like, you have the physical embodiment, which is the mask salesman, but the power that he has is what trapped Zelda in the mask of Majora. So she's kind of fighting with Majora, very similar to Breath of the Wild, where she's fighting with that, but she's also consciously saying, if I bring woe to the world, a hero will appear, or we hope. And then when he dies, when the moon falls on him, again, you see Majora. And then the next person you see is the mask salesman. So there's definitely a connection there. Potentially. I don't know. But again, I'm basing that on other people's theory that, Zelda is Majora. Or at least partially. Because the power of Ganon, like what makes him, attuned to the Triforce of Power, that could have been what trapped Zelda in the mask. So it could be like this almost yin and yang kind of thing, where it's like you got evil and good, so on and so forth. And all that's left is the physical portion of Ganon, which, if you look at the mask salesman, he has mood swings. He goes from like smiling and to like to he has these weird outbursts, as if he's fractured, like mentally You know, like his conscience is just fractured. He's not whole. He's not made whole. So again, I would accompany that with the idea of maybe he got the Triforce, and maybe I mean, because he could have made an interesting wish about people being who they really are, and the power that he had left him, became Majora's Mask, and then trapped Zelda in there with her, or with it, I should say. I mean, you could have that. That could definitely be an interesting way to go. And like I said, all that's left is this broken, mentally deficient dude who can not only just bop around and travel wherever the hell he wants to, but he can also go to different timelines or different... because we see him one other time, and it was a portable version. I think it was it Four Sword Adventure? I can't remember. But I think it was one of the Oracle games. No, it was the Oracle games. So we see him in Ocarina of Time, we see him in Majora's Mask, and then we see him in Link's Awakening. Or no, not Link's Awakening. Was he in Link's Awakening? I can't remember if he was in Link's Awakening, but I think he was in the Oracle games. So he can definitely traverse different paradoxical time things. But again, if you take Majora's Mask and put it where it should be, which is where the hero is successful, then you do see a transition very clearly of where he is in the universe. So he is on the hero's defeated timeline. So yeah, I mean, that in and of itself, again, I do think the hero was defeated when the moon fell on him. That's just how it is. And then when Majora brought him back, the child era came into fruition, which is ironic because it would have been, that's how it would have played out anyway. But there's no way that the child era and the adult era could have coexisted simultaneously if she sent him back before he pulled the sword. Yes, it would have created a paradox, but it would have also rewritten the adult timeline. So he has to die to solidify those two timelines. And then when he comes back, the child timeline can survive on an offshoot, which is exactly what it does. So I think that's exactly how it plays out. It has to play out that way, because if it's any other variant of that, time just doesn't work that way. Now I understand, I don't think Nintendo is into, like, you know, time and paradox. I don't think they understand that kind of stuff, you know, collectively. Obviously all this stuff was, gee, let's make another Zelda game, and they made another Zelda game. And the fans want to be like, well, where does it fit? And they're like, yeah, it fits here. That's basically what all this is. But just from a fan perspective of where do these games fit chronologically, you know, it is what it is. Because like I said, I don't think Nintendo has, like, any major, I'm talking like Miyamoto and all those fuckers, I don't think they have any real understanding of physics and quantum mechanics and time and string theory. I don't think they even took any of that into consideration. I think it was just, yeah, this looks good here. Bloop. You know, let's just put a pinprick in that one, you know. But they obviously created the hero was defeated. And as I said, Majora's Mask should fit up in that little space between the heroes defeated and the two child and adult timeline line. It should fit right up in there, right where the hero is successful, right where that icon is, where it says that. That's where the Majora Mask should fit. Because technically, the adult era shouldn't be connected with the child timeline. But they did that because she sent him back in time, and therefore they kind of coexist at the same time, at the same moment. So it's like they're showing you one part of it, but confusing you by doing it that way. And they put the hero is defeated up further. because it insinuates that the very end of the game is where the line of child era and adult era take place. That's not the case. It should actually go up higher, but the only way you could do that is to extend the line and then have the two branch off. If anything, it should have been at an angle and branched off. But again, that would screw up the page. That would screw up the continuity. You know, it'd screw up the just the nice way it's laid out. So they kind of went with the way it's laid out versus the way it should actually be. So Majora's Mask should go way up there. It should go up there. So the hero defeated is actually the beginning of Majora's Mask, and at the end of Ocarina of Time, which it is. I mean, if you look at the way this is presented, it is. Now, if you look at the icon of Majora's Mask, it is above Link to the Past, so it actually takes place before that. Now, obviously in a different time, but it takes place before that. So it's clearly showing that it does go Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and then Link to the Past. Now, again, it's on a different timeline, but that is the chronological order of how they go. Even though you're skipping, you're jumping over like multiverse type stuff. Which, yeah, because the whole Ganondorf is sealed, blah blah blah. That is the very end of Ocarina of Time. And it kind of sucks that they put Majora's Mask down where they did, even though it technically is supposed to be down there, because that stuff happened before that. But the hero defeated should actually, well, actually, if anything, the hero defeated should be at the very, very edge of where Majora's Mask is, and everything on the defeated timeline should be pushed down some. But to do that, you would screw up the page. You wouldn't have enough room on the page. The page would have to be longer. So they kind of condensed it and squished it together, which kind of sucks. Although I suppose they could have... Well, see, the problem is if they did... I was thinking if they took the hero defeated and connected the line to the child era and the adult era and just made like a three-way split right there, that would be a little better. But it still wouldn't be, you know, enough. I don't know, whatever. But I think the way that I'm describing it actually could work. Because currently, the way it looks on this particular thing, it doesn't work. Because it just doesn't. Because at no time... Because what it suggests is that the hero is defeated happens sometime... Actually, no, that's not true. Yeah, the hero defeated is when... Actually, that is true. What I'm saying is true, because if you look at this, child era, adult era, that line, that is the very end of Ocarina of Time. That's the very end of it. Now, the hero defeated would be when she sent him back. So, the hero defeated and the child timeline have to be somewhere in cahoots. Now, I would actually draw a line from the corner where it says child era and connect it to hero defeated. Because she sends him back in time, which would basically be up above where it says hero is successful, which is where the hero is defeated. So as he goes back in time, which again Majora's Mask should fit right in there, it would actually be the very beginning of Majora's Mask. So there's kind of a little bit of an overlap there. But again, because they wanted to keep continuity and keep the chart, you know, looking normal, they kind of moved Majora's Mask down past all of that, which is technically true, but not exactly true. I mean, if anything, like I said, if anything, the child era and the adult era time, that line that goes straight across, just under the hero successful, should have been moved up to where the hero is defeated, basically. But by doing that, it shows that she sent him back in time, which was when he was a child, which would be up there. I don't know. It's confusing as hell the way they set it up. But I think that's part of the problem, because Majora's Mask takes place directly after that, and people are not taking into consideration that the hero was defeated in Majora's Mask and not Ocarina of Time, simply because of the way it's set up. Because that right there is a clusterfuck. You can't deny that. That whole section right there is just a simple clusterfuck. And you do not see the hero be defeated in Ocarina of Time. You don't. You don't. You don't see it happening. Because, you know, it's, I don't know. But again, if the hero died, it would solidify the adult timeline, and it would create the hero defeated. And then by Majora bringing Link back, it would then continue the child era, which is what we see. That's exactly what we see. Because the paradox would be he's dead and now he's been brought back. So there was kind of a paradox within a paradox. There's definitely two paradoxes. Those two games create paradoxes. She sent him back before he pulled the sword, which created a paradox, which created the adult timeline, but the adult timeline wouldn't survive if he rewrote the history. It just wouldn't. So if he dies, then those two are solidified. She Majora's Mask, brings him back. That then creates the third middle timeline. That's the only way that can work. I'm talking logically here. I'm not talking, you know, in game. Well, the story said this and blah blah blah. That's the only way it could work logically. So whatever. Anyways, you know what? I don't want to talk about this anymore. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this topic. I'm tired of it. So anyway, that's my Zelda freaking theory. Actually, there's two theories, huh? Actually, a couple theories. Could have made this 2 videos. Oh well. Sucks to be me. Anyways, whatever. Like, subscribe, favorite, or go fuck yourself. Either or, I don't care.